When did England's last cave dwellers leave their caves for the last time, do you think? Go on, have a guess. 100,000 years ago, maybe? What about 50,000 years ago? Well, you might be surprised to know that people were still living in caves in England in the mid-1960s. Right up until the middle of the 60s, there were people living up there in caves at Kinver Edge, just outside Birmingham. Eventually, the council moved them out into more modern accommodation. These caves have been inhabited for thousands of years. By the 20th century, they actually seemed to be quite nice places to live. The sandstone had been further cut to create bathrooms, kitchen, and further living spaces. Life expectancy for people living in these caves was apparently better than house dwellers. During the Industrial Revolution, life expectancy in England was 50. People were reaching the age of 80 in those cave houses. The residents had no complaints. They even made money by selling food and drink to a steady stream of visitors and tourists. They all wanted to get a glimpse of people who were still living this way, seemingly out of choice. England is one of, if not the, most developed countries in the world. Yet here we have dozens of families living in caves well into the 20th century with no electricity and no running water. Why would people choose to live in such unusual dwellings? Well, that got me thinking. Are there other houses in England and around the world that are equally as bizarre as living in a cave? And it turns out there are. I've compiled a list of crazy houses to live in. Some of them make cave dwelling seem mundane and ordinary. Who would live in houses like these? Audience, it's over to you. The house in the clouds. This stunning and unusual building can be seen for miles around beautiful Thorpe Ness in Suffolk. It was built in 1923 as a water tower, incorporating a residential home. Water towers tend to be eyesores, but this was brilliantly designed to be more in keeping with the local area. It has the effect of a house floating above the trees when viewed from nearby locations. The water tower element of the building fell out of use in the 1970s, so the tank was removed, allowing for more living space to be added to the tower. The house now boasts 5 bedrooms and 4 bathrooms, with the room at the top giving you breathtaking views of the stunning Suffolk countryside. Can you imagine living here? Well, you really don't have to imagine. At the time of making this video, you can even book a stay here on Airbnb. The Kerrit House. The world's narrowest house is the Kerrit House at Warsaw, Poland. It was squeezed between 2 other buildings, and I mean squeezed. The house doesn't meet Poland's building codes, so it's officially classified as an art installation, even though it is being used as a residence. It was built with the support of Warsaw Town Hall. Its width measures 3 feet at its narrowest point and 4.99 feet at its widest. Even though it's narrow, it has 1 bedroom, a bathroom, a kitchen, and a living area. What more do you need? The windows don't open, but plenty of sunlight floods the house because of its translucent walls. Entry to the Kerrit House is via a retractable staircase, and occupants use a ladder to travel between floors. The building was produced by the Polish Modern Art Foundation, and in 2019 it was named as one of the most iconic houses in the world. The house is named after Israeli writer and film producer Etgar Kerrit. He was its very first tenant. Container City. Containers are used for global shipping, but what should we do with them at the end of their useful life? Well, we could live in them. Yes, in London, some people live in containers. A company in East London has used old shipping containers to create this bizarre site, which includes domestic residences and office space. How would you feel about living in a container? These work well, particularly on land available for short and medium-term use. When the land is needed for other uses, you just take down the containers and move them elsewhere. Container City 1 was completed in 2001, and it proved so successful in providing low-cost housing and office space that Container City 2 soon followed in 2002, and they're still there to this day. 16 projects have been completed to date. Container City has proved to be inexpensive to build, and these award-winning projects are environmentally friendly and completed quickly. This illustration shows how the containers are stacked to produce surprising but functional work and living spaces. Container City. I'm sure the people who live and work there just can't contain themselves. Cube houses. This film from the mid-70s sets out the vision, the dream, the possibilities for cube houses at Helmond and Rotterdam in the Netherlands. They're probably the craziest houses on my list. I'm no architect, but I really do struggle to understand what on earth they were trying to achieve. The house shown in this video is one of 3 test houses that were built in 1974. The walls are at a 54-degree angle, but it's probably fair to say that this video gives an optimistic view on the living space that's available. The test houses incredibly got the go-ahead, and several projects got the green light. Who thought this was a good idea? The idea was to create high-density housing with plenty of space on the ground level, and to be fair, they did achieve that. The actual footprint of the house is small, but the area inside the house is big. The houses are cubed in shape and tilted onto a corner. That's meant to optimise space and to efficiently distribute the rooms. The houses are big, but surely common sense tells us that usable space will be minimal. It looks like the designers of these houses were rather proud of the 100 square metre space created inside, but because of its angle structure, only 25 square metres is actually livable. Surely they knew this before they were built. The first floor windows face the ground, and the second floor windows face the sky. You're either staring at the pavement or the stars. The houses still stand to this day, and I can only imagine that the residents think they're wonderful, but they have come in for criticism for being impractical and lacking space. This type of house was tried in other parts of the world, but I think it's fair to say that they didn't catch on. The designers of the cube house must have been out of their box. Personally, I'd prefer to live in a cave. Please allow me just 20 seconds to plug this channel. Very Nearly Interesting is a brand new channel, and I need all the help I can get. Please click that like button if you've enjoyed this video. That's how YouTube knows you like it, and they'll show it to more people. And please consider subscribing. That way I might see you again. And now you can support the channel on Patreon, where you'll find exclusive content and a grateful me. There's a link in the channel description. I'd even prefer to live in a skip. And that's exactly what someone recently did in London. They lived in a skip for a whole year, partly in the name of art and partly to make a statement on the prohibitive cost of housing in London and across the UK. The skip tenant was turned into a social media star by the end of his stay, receiving over 25 million views on TikTok. Casa de Penido. The Casa de Penido, or stone house in Portuguese, got its name because huge boulders were used in its construction. The foundations, walls, and roof are formed from 4 mammoth rocks. How many thousands of years old is this house, do you suppose? Well, it was built in 1972 using an unusual construction method, and it was used as a holiday home. The construction method was considered unusual because they started with the roof. I'll leave that thought with you for a moment. The Casa de Penido is considered to be the strangest house in the world. And after many years of habitation, it now houses a small museum where you can learn about its history. Ball houses. By the time we got to the late 70s, the Dutch must have realised that their cube houses were ridiculous and they would never catch on. They went back to the drawing board and came up with ball houses. I'm sure the designers were over the moon that no one had thought of this before. Surely this would be a winner. The Bolwoningen project was an experimental house design and is located in the Maaspoort neighbourhood in the Netherlands. The Dutch government were offering grants for experimental housing designs at the time, and for a while, ball houses looked like the future. They are constructed from reinforced concrete and fiberglass, and because they were made off-site, they could be erected in just one day. The houses are divided into 3 levels, with the lower concrete section used for storage. Look at this guy, nonchalantly chatting away on his phone without a care in the world. He cares not a jot that his house looks like a golf ball sitting on a tee. The available living space in the Bolwoningen is a respectable 55 square metres. They had clearly learned their lessons from the cube houses. All of the ball houses are currently occupied, but unfathomably, they didn't catch on elsewhere. And today, they make for an unusual sight in an otherwise normal-looking suburban area. Thin house. This regal and stunning looking house is every bit in keeping with upmarket South Kensington in London. Its majestic facade would not raise an eyebrow to any passing resident until you get to the side of the property. At its narrowest end, the house is only 6 feet wide. When it was built in 1885, the developers only had a small slither of land to work with after the construction of the South Kensington tube station. Today, it's a block of flats, and it's reported that you can expect to pay around £1 million should you like to own your own piece of thin house. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you did enjoy it, please click the like button. That way YouTube will show it to more people. And please consider subscribing. That way I might see you again. And please have a look at some of the other content on the channel. There's lots of interesting things on there. Well, very nearly interesting.